Hello, today we're going to be making a Windows form application in VB.NET. For this you will need Visual Studio, which you can download free off the Microsoft site, and some basic knowledge of the language Visual Basic.NET, such as if statements, variables and subs. If you don't know that, you can get all of that off my previous tutorial, Learn VB.NET in 13 minutes. I will put a link in the description. Okay, so we're going to create a new project. Now you should be fairly used to seeing forms. They're quite common. They're literally just like this. Maximize, minimize, they're the sort of thing you're quite used to. Okay, by default you should have a toolbox here, Solution Explorer here, and a Properties box here. If you haven't got any of those, go into View and select them. The Solution Explorer allows you to view different things in your project, so you can go to Form 1 Design there, and the code behind it here. Obviously there isn't any in it because we haven't done anything yet. Properties allow you to change properties of a object on your form or the form itself. I'm going to change the property of the form to set the text at the top to test. There you go. And in the toolbox you can click and drag objects that you want on your form. So there you go, you can put a label on. Okay, for this tutorial I'm going to create a data input form for a user to set the time of a meeting and set an appointment. I'm doing this because it's quite simple to make and it's quite effective at demonstrating how to deal with a form. So first things first, create a button, as I just did, and set the text to name, and set the name of the label to name LBL. Okay. Make sure you give them sensible names because you will be referring to them in your code, and if you give them names such as label 1, label 2, label 3, you won't know what they are. We're going to need one of those for name, one for date of birth, one for gender, and one for appointment time. Okay, so there we are. Just done it the same way I've done the first one. I've called that DOB LBL, that gender LBL, and that date LBL. I would recommend when naming things that you name variables with a lowercase starting letter and objects such as these with an uppercase so that you know what things are. So we're going to need methods of inputting data for the user. For name, we're going to do a text box for the user to input a string, and we're going to call it name txt. For date of birth, we're going to need a numeric up-down, which we're going to call day UD, and we're going to set the minimum value to 1 because you can't have less than 1 day in a month, and the maximum value to 31. And we're going to need one of those for month and one of those for year. So as you can see, I've created 3. I've called that day UD, that month UD, and that year UD. Minimum 1, maximum 31, minimum 1, maximum 12, and I've set this from 1900 to 2014 because this is, well, it seems like a sensible range. It's quite hard with the years because obviously the smaller the window, the less chance there is of error, because if you get, say that if you had 1918 and you got the 18 and the 81 the other way around, it's quite a difference in age. So the smaller the window, the less errors made inputting the data, because it won't let you input something outside the bounds. But if someone is old enough or young enough to be outside the bounds, you've got a problem. So I set it between 1900 and 2014 because they seem reasonable. Okay, I'm going to have a combo box for gender, and there you go, and I'm just going to call this gender CB. If you go to items, don't change the word collection, but you'll see a button here. If you click that button, you can put each possible item on a line. So I'll just put female and male. There you go. And for set date, we're going to use a date time picker, which is here. You don't use those in, I'll show you later why you don't use that for date of birth when we're running it, because it's easier. And I'm just going to call the date time picker date pick. If you've got more than one, it's not a sensible name, but if you've only got one, it's quite obvious what it is, so we'll go with that. And we're going to have a button called save, and that's when you press that, it will save it in the variables. So we're going to call that save bnt and put its text to just save. Okay, so if you run that by pressing the start button at the top, you'll see you've got a nice looking form to input data, but obviously it doesn't do anything yet. So if you double click save, it'll take you to here. You don't need the load. It'll take you to this sub here. This sub is, as it says here, handles button click, so it runs when the button is clicked. So we're going to declare variables for each of them. Dim name as string, dim day as integer, dim month as integer, dim year as integer. You could convert the data you get into a date if you wanted, but we're not going to do that now. Dim gender as string, and this is where we will use a date. Dim set date as date, because we're getting that straight from a date time picker, so it'll already be in date format. Right, we want to validate the data and check that it's not empty, so we're going to say dim if name equals speech marks, then we're going to go else if gender equals speech marks, so empty, do that, else do this. So if name is empty, it will run there. If name isn't, but gender is, it will run there. And if neither of them are empty, it will run what's we put in here. So we're just going to put an error box, MSG box. Name cannot be blank. Sorry, yeah, you want to put that as where you're getting it from immediately, not the variable name. Sorry, I was getting a bit mummed up there. Yeah, name txt.text for the name, because that's the text value in the name txt.text box, and gender cb.value, not .value, selected item, getting modelled up with the numeric up down there. It's not selected item dot toString. Make sure you get that toString. It's quite important. Okay. Now we're going to say, so if you have got values in them, we're going to say name equals name txt.text, day equals day ud.value, month equals month ud.value, year equals year ud.value, gender equals gender cb dot selected item dot toString, and set date, sorry, this one you've this one is a bit different. You've got set date equals date pick dot value dot toLongDate string. If you put toString, it will include the time as well, but as we haven't given them an option to select the time, it will give them the time of which they save the form, which isn't obviously necessarily the same as what they're trying to book. So just run through. If it's a text box, you just put .text. Most things you put .value. Combo box, you put .selectedItem .toString, because selected item isn't in the format you can read, so put .toString, and .value .toLongDate string, so that it's date rather than date and time. Okay, sorry, I made a bit of a mistake here. You just want to put .selectedItem equals nothing. It's a better way of doing it. Instead of .selectedItem .toString equals blank. Okay. So now we've got all our values. We're just going to give it out to the user by going msgbox hello and name and gender and close speech marks, close brackets. Your appointment, your meeting is set for and set date. So now if you run that, Jim, mail, choose a date, and go save, it'll say, hello Jim, mail, your meeting is set for there. So I hope that's been of use as a brief insight in how to make Windows form applications. Thank you for watching. And just quickly, before you go, I was going to say the reason why you don't use a date catch, the reason why I wouldn't immediately use a date catch form for date of birth, you wouldn't use a date selector for date of birth, is if you go here you can see it's really easy to do the month, date in the same month, relatively easy to do, month either side. You can do other months by zooming out, and you can do other years by zooming out, so you could reach it, but it does make it incredibly difficult, say, to reach values outside of your own month, and definitely outside your own year, which makes it hard for the user. Anyway, thank you for watching. Goodbye.